Vanessa maintained a menacing tone so she wouldn't lose the boy's interest with mushy stuff. She leaned closer and her eyes darted from Robbie's to Andy's. She neared the tale's finish. Before Lydia agreed to marry him, she made him promise her something. He had to swear that he would never, never take her away from her home, and that he would forever keep the house. If she died first, he would not sell it or tear it down. He swore, and they were married. The sun shone for the briefest of moments on the Pennsylvania hillside. Vanessa's long shadow covered Robbie and reached past him into the woods. To the right of it, a few inches away from Andrew's foot, was a thinner shadow, an inky black line as hollow as a broken heart, as empty as a liar's oath. It spilled from the center of the clearing. Nyssa continued. Now the young man didn't care about the promise he had made. The young man had other plans, because the only thing left for him to do now was to get the house and the fortune that he had been denied. The only thing he had to do was to murder his wife, or should I say sister, because Jonathan Culvert's real name was Nathan Vanderhume. "Ew," Robbie exclaimed in disgust. "He married his own sister? Isn't that against the law?" Bobby asked. "Even back then?" "Yes, even back then," Nyssa answered, "but Nathan had been away for so long that no one knew what he looked like, and he had legally changed his name, so he fooled everyone." Well, a little time went by, and Nathan, who was crafty, started to say things in town about how his wife was acting funny these days and talking about killing herself. You see, he was going to hang her and make it look like suicide. Everybody would believe it because they thought she had gone crazy after her father died. So, one dark night, he crept into her room. Vanessa shot Talia a conspiratorial look. The girls had planned in perfect detail how when Nyssa got to the part about the undead couple wanting a child, she would say, "And they want you." Tally would grab Andrew, she her brother. It would be some small revenge for having to babysit the little brats so often. Nyssa got a wink back from Tally and wound up for the big finish. He crept up the stairs and slipped the noose around her neck and "That's not how it happened, little girl." Andrew interrupted in a slow, deep voice that was not his own. "Shut up, Andy, you don't even know, you're not even," Robbie started to say, but when he saw his classmate's face, he was struck silent. The girls saw it too, and all thoughts of stories and practical jokes were instantly forgotten. The boy sat straight-backed, his hands lying limp at his sides. The shadow of the iron pylon ran up the length of his body and came to a point in the middle of his forehead. It was as though he had been impaled on it. His eyes had rolled back, and his skin had become so translucent that you could see blue and red veins under it. Talia and Robbie got up from the log and moved away from him in horror. His words formed from the sound of dried bones being rubbed together. They echoed up from the bottom of a deep pit. It was night, and I turned the gas lights off, and I called her into the parlor. What a delight to play our old game again. I giggled just like I did when I was 5 years old. When the door slammed behind her, she remembered. She remembered her part right away. Her screams made the chandelier tinkle and ring. I never even had to tell her who I really was. My clever sister guessed right away. It was just like old times. I told her how I would do it. First, spatter her brains all over the precious walls of her house that Daddy loved so much, then burn it all to the ground. Everyone would believe poor crazy Liddy did it. I used the fireplace poker there in the dark. Whack! When I turned the light up, she looked so pretty with the point sticking out of her skull I had to leave it. I went upstairs to bed whistling a happy tune. I could light the fire in the morning. As you may imagine, I was wholeheartedly surprised when morning never came. I awoke the next day to a world of utter darkness. I turned up the lamp, drew back the curtains, and was aghast to see nothing but soil and stone outside the window. Mud and earth with wet worms sliding against the glass. I ran downstairs, swung the front door open, to find nothing but rock. Then I heard her laughing. The little boy Andrew, who had become an instrument of frail flesh played by an unholy piper, suddenly resonated with the music of a mad woman's staccato laughter. Rivulets of dark drool streamed from his mouth. The boy slowly lifted a finger and pointed to the source of the shadow that held him like the pin holds the butterfly. And a man whose lungs had rotted and fallen out before the boy was even born blew his crypt breath through Andrew again. Put your sweet little ears to it, children. Put your ears to it and listen. As a seashell holds the echo of the ocean, it holds the sobs and screams from that morning. I saw her sitting in the chair down here in the parlor, her white lace dress caked with brownish blood, both hands on the poker placed across her knees, her left eye laying flat and dry on her cheek, trailing pink and crimson twine back to its socket. Her other eye was wide. She had the wickedest little smile. He said the last part with a sick admiration. Andrew coughed and sputtered. He closed his eyes, then opened them again, looking around as if he was in a new place. He coughed again, mud dribbled down his chin. He bit down, and there was the sound of teeth grinding dirt. He spoke now in the willowy voice of Lydia. She sounded like a spoiled child. I told you I would never leave my home, Nathan, not even in death. I pulled us down under the earth where we'd be safe and cozy in the clay and the coal. All that remains up there is the tippity top of the weather vane on the roof. Tally, Robbie, and Nissa looked at the black iron artifact at the center of the clearing, that merciless nail that fixed their brittle, sane world to a sunken mausoleum of eternal torture and madness. Talia understood the terrible power even the shadow of the weather vane held. Lydia continued, And I told Natty, dear little batty Natty, as I ran my cold finger up and down the bloody poker, I told him all the gas for the gas lights would run out soon. We would be in the dark, the darkest darkety dark he had ever not seen, and I would play the game, the pincers in the poker game. I'd poke and pinch until there was no more flesh on his bones, and keep going, even after that, forever. Talia gathered her strength, trying not to fall under the weird, cold spell the voice cast. Come play with us, children. Come fill my house with young screams. Join our happy family and play forever and ever. Talia kicked Andrew in the shoulder hard. The boy rolled off the log onto the ground like a thing stuffed with cotton. For a few seconds, everyone thought he was dead. He took a deep gulp of air like he had just come up from the bottom of a lake, then scrambled to his feet, gagging, screaming, and running for home. They all followed him. They all screamed and ran. They had to sprint over the sunken mansion to reach the trail and swore that they could feel the damned siblings clawing at them, biting at their souls, trying to catch them between their ice-cold teeth. They careened down the hillside, losing keys, hair clips, backpacks, and even the odd shoe. Things they would never try to reclaim. Andrew wasn't at school for a few days. It took them all a few weeks to feel normal again. They never talked about what had happened, even to each other. The altering seasons would soften the sharp edges of that lost September afternoon, just as surely as they soften cobblestone paths to dust. Andrew, however, was left with a recurring nightmare. In it he would always be 10, like he was on that day. He would always get up to go to school, but finding it still dark outside, he would go to the window. He would always open the curtains. And in place of sky, there are bands of wet earth, a yellowish, then the orange of mineral rust where the horizon should be, gray and brown strata above it, the black of a coal vein on top, the taste of it all in his mouth. He would see the view that never changes, the sun that never sets or rises, a sun set in clay for the damned.